going round and round. Read the reeling and a rocking. What a crazy sound. Well, you never stop a rocking. Ooh, the moon went down.
Tonight on Friday Night Videos, your guest hosts are Paul Schaffer and the legendary Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones. We'll have broadcast premieres from the Stones, the Bangles, plus the new video from the Karate Kid, the Moody Blues, and a Friday Night Videos exclusive as Keith and Paul and Marcus perform lots of great Stones hits, including a very special version of Sleep from the new Stones album. And now, Paul Schaffer and Keith Richards.
One of my favorite of your tunes is Under My Thumb. It's one that I play with my band a lot.
Yeah, I've heard it, man.
I really love that song because it's got that simple marimba riff and everything.
Yeah.
And it's got that interesting minor coloration to it. How did that thing come about?
Yeah, putting my finger on it's very difficult, but I've used it in loads of songs, and I've never really been able to say, oh,
the chord progression.
I got it from yeah. You know, I use it on Give Me Shelter too, and it crops up in loads. I think it's even one on the new album that's like that, but it's that you know. The body and one straight from the heart. That's one. So
see, that's a current song, yeah. But it's got bump, bump, it's got a little jumping jack flash.
Yeah.
Rhythmically, jumping jack flash.
Yeah. Yeah. So you change the rhythms around, but certain. I mean, I just find myself, you know, working over those things. There's still, and I try and find as many songs as I can out of that. I find, not really consciously, but just, I find myself playing that sequence, and there's still room in there for, you know, to say other things in a different way.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with more great music and the real story of how Keith first met Mick Jagger.
That.
I heard you met Mick Jagger on a train.
Yeah, I mean, once we'd left school, I hadn't seen him for about 4 years or so, and in the meantime, that's when I'd started, I was going to art school, and I'd picked up guitar, and I got heavily into Chuck Berry and Muddy Waters and stuff, you know, Jimmy Reed, and one day, there was Mick again, who I'd known for, you know, since he was, I think 4 years old was the time that we can remember. We can trace it back to there, you know, BC. But he was under his arm. He had his chess records, Chuck Berry albums.
He had a Chuck Berry album under his arm on the train.
Yeah, 2 or 3 of them, in fact. I was incredibly jealous. And so, in other words, we re-met and found out that in the meantime, we both developed the same taste in music. And also, he'd been, like, doing his little bit with some amateur band, you know, pretending to be Elvis and Buddy Holly like we all do.
We're doing,
did.
yeah.
And probably still do. But, and you know, I just opened the door, I opened the carriage, got in the train, and there's Mick with these albums, you know. So then we got to talking, and I wanted to know where he got them from, because they were American pressings, you know. They weren't English. So, and since we'd been hanging around from 4 years old until we were 11, until we happened to go to different schools, it was. I mean, it was one of those things where you can't deny it. You know, it's one of the, this has to happen. You know, but I wanted to know where he got the records, and he was into singing, and then you know, on the train ride, he found that I played little guitar, so we got back together. You know, and used to sort of drive our parents berserk.
Yeah.
And all that.
But it was a Chuck Berry record that let you know.
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
guys
Rocking
were
at the Hops.
on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about a song like 19 Nervous Breakdown, because we were talking about riffs and how you can base a whole song on a riff, and that's a song that's got about 5,000 riffs, all hooks, classic hooks, all put together. How do you come up with those? Where did 19 Nervous Breakdown come from?
I think I was really, at this time, I was scared I was going to forget them if I didn't, you know, use them all at once.
All at once, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
well, that one's got, I mean, it's got a bass riff.
Yeah, boom, down.
So there already.
Diddley. And,
what, came from Bo Diddley, that thing?
Yeah, Diddley Dad, yeah.
That tune, Diddley Daddy?
Yeah. And, I mean, it was really like a kind of tribute.
And there's a thing that happens on the top.
Mr. Memory. Yeah. Yeah, and then
yeah.
Here comes your 19.
Kind of a satisfaction thing.
Yeah. It was all, because it was all around the same time I was coming. I mean, it seemed sometimes that I kept rewriting Satisfaction. To me, it seemed like that. I mean, and they just kept piling out these riffs, and I thought, well,
right.
You know, let's try and put as many into one song as possible. And
put too many in, you probably have a nervous breakdown or something.
Off my mind. Oh, baby, no, it's just that honk, the heart of honky tonk woman. You know, to give me a honky tonk blues.
Videos right after this. You know, a couple of weeks ago they had Little Richard on this show, and he talked about how when he went over to England, you guys were his opening act.
Being on the tour with myself and Bo Diddley and the Everly Brothers through England, Mick Jagger was opening the show with us. He had a van, he and Keith and the rest of the group, and they were sleeping in the van, and Mick Jagger started sleeping on our floor. It was the most terrifying moment of my life, really, I think. 6 weeks around England with Bo Diddley. The Everly Brothers were top of the bill, and Little Richard. I mean, we probably learnt more in those 6 weeks from Richard. You know, we used to watch, you know, we do our bit and sort of slowly got used to sort of the size of the stage and the expansion of the audience. But what we'd really do, I mean, we didn't really look forward to playing on that stage because we figured that we were a club band. What we really looked forward to was like getting our bit out of the way and then watching those guys work. You know, and we'd be hanging from rafters and we'd find little places that we get a good viewpoint and how they did it, and like we'd watch everything, you know. I mean, if they'd had video cameras in those days, then we'd Howard Jones, no one is to blame.
So what were some of the real influential records for you at that time?
Once they started coming, I just wait by the radio. Well, let's see, first, but all the Buddy Hollies of the first part, you know, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, of course, you know, Bo Diddley, Eddie Cochran, and a lot of the doo-wop stuff, you know.
Doo-wop, like that New York stuff?
Yeah, the harmonies, the vocals, and you know, Earth Angel.
That's one that you haven't really, to my knowledge, you never really explored too much with the Stones, doo-wop. I mean, you went...
And it can't hold a harmony, man.
We'll be right back with much more from Paul and Keith, including the story of the most famous Stones song, Satisfaction. Plus a brand new...
This is more of Friday Night Videos. How about that?
I couldn't have dreamed that one up.
You seem to have an uncanny talent for coming up with a simple riff and writing a song around the catchiest riff imaginable. You know, like, and it becomes
Takes
like...
a simple guy.
Is that what it is? Satisfaction, for instance. I mean, you can't, you know, that thing will endure forever. Bum, bum, ba-da-da. Where does a thing like that... Where does it think
I'll tell you where it comes from, you know, and then I'll tell you how dumb I am by not recognizing them when they come. It's the first time I ever could afford, was in London, to stay in a Hilton hotel, right? I mean, the London Hilton. And I'd got one of the early first cassette players, you know, the little tiny jugs, the real sort of straight off the drawing board almost at that time. It was about 65. Right? And I thought, well, this is a handy gadget, yeah. And so I had that, and I had, you know, the trusty old axe next to the bed, and I was asleep. And, I mean, this is talking about how songs come. I mean, I just woke up in the middle of the night. Dun, 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 dun.
Middle of the night?
Yeah, middle of the night. Straight out of sleep. Pushed my record button. Put it down on tape. Must remember this, you know, and listen to it over breakfast, right?
Yeah.
And I got maybe like one verse and the riff down, you know. And anyway, the next day I wake up and the tape is like finished, you know. So I order my Hilton breakfast, you know, it's a big deal for me at the time. And, you know, sheer luxury. And so I run it back and push the button, and sure enough, there at the beginning is Satisfaction, you know. And then there's 45 minutes of me snoring.
Hey, stick around. We got some great music and the story of Chuck Berry throwing Keith off stage when we come back.
So, you just recently were in Chicago playing with Chuck Berry, 25 years later.
Yeah, at last he allowed me.
Well, that must have been...
It was great. It was a few days ago, you know. I mean, Chuck, I mean, he was my man, you know, and I've had my ups and downs with Chuck over the years.
I've heard about this. Now, this is interesting, because the guy who actually really influenced you to start playing guitar really brought you and Mick together, because Mick was carrying it out.
True.
Now, then there's an interesting story about, was it the first time you met Chuck, or the first time you were on stage with him?
No, the first time it must have been sometime in the 60s, and he threw me off.
Threw you off the stage?
Yeah, I was playing too loud for him. Yeah.
So, yeah.
People that were being kind said I was playing too good.
Yeah.
But he said it was too loud.
I wouldn't try to answer that question.
No, I wouldn't.
But then what about, was it the Ritz or a club in New York? Did he bash you with a guitar?
Yeah,
or
he gave me a black eye, yeah. He's now waiting for me to give him a white one.
We'll be right back with the story of Keith's first guitar lesson and an exclusive Friday Night Videos live version of Sleep Tonight from the new Stones album.
I really don't even know, because my granddad used to put it in my hand when I was that big. I think he had ambitions for me, and for absolutely no reason, because he was a musician but fairly lousy.
And so what was your early repertoire as a kid? I mean, was this...
He tried to teach me Malaguena.
Oh, yeah. Spanish guitar.
Yeah. He tried to teach me that stuff, and I could never understand why. I mean, I loved it. I always thought the guitar lived on top of the piano in his house.
Yeah.
And, but I only found out a little while ago that, in actual fact, he used to keep it real stashed away. He'd only bring it out when I came, when he knew I was coming to visit. You know.
Yeah. I had a similar experience. My parents got me into playing the piano immediately, as early as they could. Would sit me down at the piano, get me to play. But it wasn't really until rock and roll hit the radio up in Canada, where I was, that I all of a sudden was galvanized and said, this is what I wanted to do.
Same thing with
Same
you.
with you. What was the song that you first heard that made you want to play rock and roll?
It was the first rock and roll record I heard, and I think in England it was, I know what it was for me. I think it's probably the first one they ever played, and it was Heartbreak Hotel.
Heartbreak Hotel.
That was the big one, and that was, boom, 1 minute, a desert out there, you know, and the next minute here comes an oasis, you know, and if you were interested in playing, that was the spark. Yeah.
And now, as promised, Sleep Tonight.
You better get some sleep tonight, baby. You better get some sleep tonight. You better get some sleep tonight, baby. You say you watch the sun go down. Shadows all over town. There's thoughts of you, was chilling me. The moon stares down in memory, baby. Yeah, better get some sleep tonight. Sleep too.
Keith and I will be right back with more of Friday Night Videos.
You gotta get him out of sight.
That tune, Start Me Up, that's a great riff.
Oh, yeah.
Was that one of those weird tunings?
It was both ways. Originally, no, it wasn't, but the final version turned out. I used,
right.
you know, I just used the tuning because of, yeah, hang on. We'll cut that in.
just as a tone drop, you know. I left the other chord out of that because, but it's still the same thing. I love all drops and
That's a kind of a Bo Diddley kind of a thing.
Yeah, very much, yeah. Yeah, it is in actual fact, yeah.
So it just shows, boy, those old tricks, like you were saying before.
Yeah, there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to me. As I say, there's one song, and all we do, I think, is make the changes and the variations. Yeah.
Great.
Don't go away. Paul and I'll be right back.
We don't have to take our clothes off. Stay tuned, because we'll be right back with more of Friday Night Videos. Paint It Black. Now, this is the Stones go psychedelic. What's the story there?
Some of the Stones were psychedelic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is like, it
was a song that had, musically, it was, I mean, it had a sitar, it was Indian kind of influence.
Yeah, it was another one of those things that just came together in the studio. The sequence is almost sort of, it's what my granddad taught me, you know, it's almost sort of one of your old classical flamenco chord sequences up to a point. You know,
even has a bolero, even has a kind of a bolero beat to
maybe the Hungarian
That's right.
you know, gypsy stuff in there. I had the sequence and I thought, there's no way that the Stones are going to, I mean, I couldn't figure out a rhythm or anything. So suddenly Brian wakes up from nowhere. And he's just been recently saw the light, you know, got psychedelicized, and had his sitar with him, you know, along with the robes and everything else. You know. And then suddenly Brian plays the sitar with him, and then it, hold on a minute, you know, then, and suddenly it took shape, and Charlie's always sitting behind the drums. He doesn't move except, you know, just once and for nature's call or something. He just sits there, and then he started tapping away, and suddenly a certain shape came in, and boom, and it was 2 takes, I think, or 3 takes, you know, and it was boom.
Paint It Black.
Paint It Black, yeah.
I want to say, Keith Richards, it's been great co-hosting Friday Night Videos with you. Really, a total gas.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks a lot.
Had a great time.
Yeah, me too. See you next time. Good night, everybody.
Sleep, yeah. So you watch sun go down, and shadows creep all the town. Oh, the thought of you just chilling me. The moon grows cold.